Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Religion Studies Paper 1, Grade 12 Preliminary Examination revision of the Paper 1. All right, the time allocation for the paper will be 2 hours. Then the mark allocation is 150. All right, then let's quickly go straight into the instructions and the information. So when it comes to Paper 1, this question paper consists of Section A and Section B. So you must always bear it in mind that the Paper 1 for Religion Studies consists of Section A and it also consists of Section B. Section A is the compulsory section where you are required to answer all the questions which you encounter there. Then in Section B, you would only choose 2 questions. So it is important to keep these instructions in mind. So all in all, you answer a total of 3 questions, which will give you 3 times 150 would give you 3 times 50, would give you 150. Then you are reminded to read all questions carefully so that you can ascertain what the question requires and also so that you can also save time. Start each question on a new page, then number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in the question paper. You are also reminded to write neatly and legibly. The length of your paper must be in accordance with the marks allocated for each question. So in this case, we are saying the length of your answer instead must be in accordance with the marks allocated to each question. Now let's dive straight into the questions themselves. So Section A, options are provided as possible answers for the following questions. Choose the answer and write only the letter A to D next to the question numbers. For example, 1.1.1 to 1.1.10 in the answer book, e.g. 1.1.1, the answer will be D. So in a religious context, so the key question, the key thing here is in a religious context. You're talking about in a religious context, a covenant is. So a covenant, they are looking for a definition of a what? Of a covenant, or definition of a covenant in the religious sense. So a covenant, it is a deep and solemn pledge or promise. It is a deep and solemn pledge or promise. For example, the covenant which Abraham had with God, which you find in the book of Genesis, which applies to the Abrahamic religion. Then question 1.1.2 reads, reconciliation is. So when you talk about reconciliation, we are talking about understanding and forgiveness between 2 people who have previously had a bad relationship. That is what we call reconciliation. This is the understanding between 2 people and forgiveness between 2 people or 2 parties. It's not only about people, but it can also be about parties who had a bad relationship. That is reconciliation. So the correct answer there would be the letter C. 1.1.3, one of the following is the Hindu scholar who leads the worship in the temple. So in the worship temple, a pandit is responsible for leading worship in the temple. That is the responsibility of a pandit. Then the most widely, our key term there will be widely accepted human rights document. The most widely accepted human rights document would be the letter B, the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Man. That will be the correct answer for 1.4. Then moving quickly on to the next one, 1.1.5, holding on to traditional and conventional values. When someone holds onto traditional and conventional values, they are considered to be conservative. So that is known as conservatism. When you hold on to traditional or conventional values, you are regarded as someone who is conservative. Then the Middle Eastern family of religions consists of. So the key term here which we need to highlight is Middle East. So when you're talking about the Middle East, we are talking about basically the territory which lies between Africa and Asia. So we are talking about those countries such as Israel, Palestine. We are also talking about the countries such as Iran, Iraq. So the question requires us to determine the family of religions which are found in the Middle East, eastern part of the world. So we do have Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Baha'i faith. These are the religions which originated in the Middle East. So they are considered to be Middle Eastern religions. Then 1.1.7, conservative Judaism, meaning that the traditional form of Judaism, so we need a description which is appropriate for the conservative Judaism. It believes that the Torah was given by God through ideas that humans mediated. The Torah, or the sacred text, it was given by God. It was inspired by God through the ideas that humans are mediated. So humans simply communicated the idea, but the whole message, they believe that it came from God himself. 1.1.8, Martin Luther was a German priest whose teachings helped to inspire the formation of. So Martin Luther was a German priest whose teachings helped to inspire the formation of the Protestant Reformist Church, which is represented by the letter B. So he was responsible for the Protestant movement, whereby most churches were turning away from the Roman Catholic teachings in an age which we call the Age of Reform, or the Reformist Age. 1.1.9, the following is a sacred text of Buddhism. So the sacred text of Buddhism in this case would be the Bhagavad Gita. That will be the sacred text of Buddhism. That is, so that will be, let me check also again. The sacred text of Buddhism, it will actually be the Pali, for that omission, it will be the Pali canon. It is, the correct answer there is C. So we need to correct it. It's actually C, not to be confused with the Bhagavad Gita. So correct answer is C there. Quickly going to 1.10, a state of happiness and peace. A state of happiness and peace, it's usually found in Middle East religions. It is known as nirvana, which is A. That is a state of perfect happiness or peace. Now, moving on to the second question. Choose the answer. Choose an item from column B that matches a description in column A. Write only the letter A to J next to the question numbers 1.5.1 to 1.5.5 in the answer book. Do not use any letter more than once. So the first thing which we need to do, we will be looking at each term, then we look for a correct description for each term. So let's start with the first one. The first one will be halakha. So the term halakha, it actually refers to the law which is strictly obeyed by Orthodox Jews. So the correct letter for halakha would be D. The law which is strictly halakha, that will be D. That is the law which is strictly obeyed by Orthodox Jews. Then if you move on to 1.2.2, a myth. A myth, it can be defined as a myth. It can be defined as a story. Talk about a myth. It is a religious story with deep truths. That's a religious story with deep truths, which is represented by the letter F. That is a myth. A religious story with deep truth about life, and the deep truths are revealed through those that's a religious story. Then 1.2.3, the ahimsa. When you talk about the ahimsa, we are talking about the law which says that you must never harm any living thing. So it is usually a law which you find in East Asian religions. It is a law which is common in East Asian religion. So ahimsa, it is a law that dictates that you should not harm any living thing. So our correct term will be A. So ahimsa is A. Then when you talk about veneration, when you are talking about veneration, we are talking about showing deep respect or reverence. It's deep respect, or we can call it deep reverence for someone or for something. Showing deep respect or reverence for something or for someone. So this is represented by the letter B. Then moving on to 1.2.5, the Tripitaka. The Tripitaka, it is actually a collection of teachings. This is known as a collection of teachings which are found in a religion called Buddhism. So that is the Tripitaka, which is represented by the letter C. That is the Tripitaka. So if I am going to quickly do a rundown, 1.2.1 would be D, 1.2.2 F, 1.2.3 A, 1.2.4 B, then 1.2.5 C. Those are the correct responses for that particular question. So the next question, it requires us to complete the sentences by filling in the missing word. Write only the word next to the question numbers. 1.2.5, 1.2.1 to 1.2.5 in the answer book. When a religion describes its God as omnipotent, it means they believe their God is. When a religion describes their God as omnipotent, it means that their God is almighty. The correct term there is almighty. Simply means that their God is almighty, or you can say that is all-powerful, which means that there is nothing or there is no one who is stronger than that particular God, all-powerful or almighty. Then, according to Taoism, the 10,000 things are produced by the three, and the three are produced by the two. The two are there. So this is a teaching from Taoism, which is called the yin yang. That is the yin yang. That is the teaching from Taoism. Then the interpretation of religious texts, the practice or the study or of the interpretation of religious texts is called hermeneutics. It is called hermeneutics. That is the interpretation of religious texts. Then 1.3.4, the most well-known Bodhisattva in Tibetan Buddhism is known as Dalai Lama. That is Dalai Lama. That is the well-known Buddhist in the Tibetan Buddhism. Then 1.3.5, in Kosa, a book that includes basics, beliefs, moral teachings, and history of the African religion, is the title Masipakule. Masipakule. That is the book in Kosa which contains the different basics, beliefs, moral teachings, and the history of the African traditional religion. Then moving on to the next question, which is 1.4. So 1.4, basically, we are choosing the word in each list that does not match the rest. So we are choosing the odd one out. Write down the word next to the question numbers 1.3.1 to 1.3.5 in the answer book and give a reason why it does not fit in. So in each case, you must provide a reason why that particular word does not fit in. For example, red, yellow, circle, blue. The answer which will be the odd one out there is circle, simply because circle is not a color. It is actually a shape. The others are all colors. So when we look at 1.4.1, when you look at 1.4.1, 1.4.1, we have Saivism, Shaktivism. Then we have Sufism, Vaishnavism. Then the one which we are removing here, it is actually Sufism. Sufism would be the odd one out. So I'm going to highlight Sufism simply because Sufis, all the rest are Hindu schools. When you look at the rest are Hindu schools, or they are Hindu schools of thoughts. You can call them Hindu schools of thoughts. The rest are Hindu schools of thought. The rest are Hindu schools. These are different forms of what of Hindu. So moving on to 1.4.2, we do have incarnate, resurrection, evolution, and salvation. All right. So our odd one out in this particular case would be, our odd one out will be evolution. Simply because if you look at incarnate, this is a term which is used in Christianity. Resurrection, it is a term used in Christianity. Salvation is also a term used in Christianity. So evolution is the odd one out simply because it is a term used in scientific Darwinism. So the rest are terms used in Christianity. So the rest are terms which are used in what? In Christianity. So that's why we are singling out evolution. Then if you move on to 1.4.3, 1.4.3, it actually reads Ramayana, Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana. All right, that is 1.4.3. So the odd one out there, it will be Ramayana. Let's highlight Ramayana. It will be the odd one out there in that particular case. That is the one which we are singling out simply because the others are subdivisions. The others are subdivisions, are divisions of Buddhism. The rest are subdivisions of Buddhism. Then we have 1.4.4, which reads Inhlavi, Isangoma, Injoli, Ilima. So, which one is the odd one out? If you look at this one, we're going to single out Ilima, simply because if you look at Inhlavi, that's the name of that's a title which is given to someone in ATR. Isangoma, the same applies. That is the name of a person in ATR. Injoli, that is also a title which is given to a person with a role in ATR. But so the rest are for 1.4.4. The rest are people who lead ATR rituals. The rest are people who lead ATR rituals. The rest are people who lead rituals in ATR. So when we look at 1.4.4, we do have Inhlavi, then we also have Isangoma, then we also have Injoli, then we also have Ilima. So if you look at these, out of this form, the unique one will be Ilima. The odd one out will be Ilima, simply because the rest refer to people who conduct or who lead rituals. The rest are ritual leaders in ATR. The rest are ritual leaders in ATR. That's why we are removing Injoli. Ilima, sorry, we are removing Ilima. The rest are people who lead rituals in ATR. Then moving on to the next question. All right, the next question reads, Tao Te Ching, non-being, 10 commandments, and predictability. So we are removing the 10 commandments simply because the 10 commandments are found in Abrahamic religions such as Christianity and also in Judaism. Then the rest are found in Taoism. The rest are Taoist teachings. So the rest are found in Taoism. Then now quickly moving on to the next question, which is 1.5. Indicate whether the following statements are true or false. Write true or false next to the question numbers 1.4.1 to 1.4.5 in the answer book. Correct the statement if it is false. So this is of utmost importance. So it's not only a matter of saying that it is false, but you also need to show the reason why you are saying that particular assertion is what is false. So it's not simply a matter of just saying true or false. No, you need to give a reason. So you need to correct the statement if it is false. So the Charter for Compassion expresses an exclusive attitude towards religion. The Charter for Compassion expresses an inclusive attitude towards religion. This is actually a true assertion. So we are saying that this one is true. Then moving on to 1.5.2, Tripitaka means 3 baskets, and it is a sacred book in Hinduism. That is actually false. The reason being, Tripitaka means 3 baskets, and that's a sacred text in Buddhism. Is a sacred book in Hinduism, a holy book in Hinduism. So instead of, in Buddhism, so it is found in Buddhism, not in Hinduism. So what we are removing there is Hinduism, then we are replacing it with Buddhism. Then a mantra is a religious text. A mantra is a religious text. This is a false statement. All right, this is actually a false statement. Mantra does not refer to a religious text, but it is a short sacred verse. Short sacred verse. Or you can say a phrase. A phrase which is taken from a sacred text is called a mantra. Now, moving on to 1.5.4. Shinto, a religion which includes the worship of nature, originated in China. Shinto did not originate in China, so this is false. Shinto originated in Japan. Shinto or Shintoism. It originated in Japan. Yes, it involves and it includes the worship of nature. Then in the context of religion, write 2 explanations or sentences on each of the following concepts. So syncretism. So syncretism, it is the blending. Syncretism it is the blending of 2 religions. Syncretism, it is the blending of 2 religions, or it is a combination or the combination of 2 different teachings. So it is a combination of 2 different teachings. Then when you look at ideology, ideology basically, it is the worldview, the general worldview It is the general worldview that shapes meaning. That shapes meaning and overall existence. Overall existence. So it is the general worldview that shapes meaning and the overall existence. That is what we mean by ideology. Now, moving on to the next question, which is, so that is the ideology. Now, moving on to the caliph. The caliph, basically, this is a chief Muslim civil and religious ruler. So the caliph, that is the chief that is the chief Muslim, civil or religious leader. So basically, that's a religious leader in Islam. That is what we call the caliph. Then a diviner, it is a diviner found in 8th era. A diviner is found in 8th era. Then it can be called by different names. It can be called an inyanga, or it can be called also be called a sangoma. That is a diviner. So this is a healer in African traditional religion. Then, so being a diviner is actually a calling. So a diviner can be a mediator between the living and the ancestors. So a diviner is a mediator between the living and ancestors and the ancestors. That is a diviner. Now, reincarnation, which is 1.6.5. Reincarnation, it is a belief. Reincarnation is a belief that a person's soul is born, is reborn in another body after death. So this belief is common in what? In East. It is a belief common. It is a belief common in, it is a belief which is common in East Asian religions. So this belief, it is mainly found. Okay, now moving on to section B. So we do have a strict instructions. We do have a strict instruction which says you should answer any 2 questions. So that is the instruction which we should follow. So the first question reads, give the meaning of each of the following words in the context of religion. So whenever you're defining religious terms, you need to contextualize them to the religious context. So we should avoid general answers whereby you simply define something from a point of view of another subject. You should contextualize it to them. You should contextualize it to the what? To the subject. So the first question reads, dogma. So we need to have a definition of what? Of the term dogma. So dogma, these are basically fixed teachings which we find in a particular religion. These are teachings without which are unquestionable, which are not usually questioned by the believers. So you can say that we can actually start by tracing the origins of the term dogma. So dogma comes from the Greek word which means the same as opinion. The same as opinion. So a dogma, it can be an opinion. Then it refers to principles or rules laid out by a collective authority. These are the rules which are laid out by a collective authority. So when it comes to these rules, it simply means that people are supposed to follow these rules. So you can also say that it refers to a set of beliefs, which are considered to be absolutely true. It refers to a set of beliefs which are considered to be absolutely true without doubt. So it refers to a set of beliefs which people consider to be absolutely free without doubt. So that is the first term, which is dogma. Now moving on to difference. So difference, remember what I said, we need to contextualize with the subject. So when you talk about differences, we are talking about features. The features which do not look alike between two religions, between two or more religions. So we are talking about the features which are not common, which do not look alike between two amongst two of the more religions. So we can also say it is a point of divergence between two religions. This is the point of divergence, a point when two or more religions are when they diverge. For example, in Judaism, they believe that Jesus Christ is actually, in Christianity, they believe that Jesus Christ is God incarnate. But when you go to Judaism, they believe that Jesus Christ was simply a messenger. He is not necessarily God himself. So that is a point of divergence between two or more religions. So this is a major difference between two or more religions. Then comparability. When we refer to comparability, it is when two religions can be compared. It refers to a situation when two religions can be compared But this does not necessarily mean that the religions are similar. Religions can be compared because they are fit to be what? To be compared. So usually this refers comparability. It occurs or it happens when religions have features which are comparable. Have features which are comparable. It happens when religions has features which are comparable. So we are not saying that these religions will be similar, but they simply have one or two features which can be compared to one another. For example, if you look at Shintoism and Buddhism, they have one or two features which they can be compared against one another. Then unity, when we refer to unity, we are referring to harmony. Unity refers to harmony. Unity actually refers to harmony between or harmony that exists. Harmony that exists among religions. Unity simply refers to the harmony that exists amongst religions. When two religions have unity or harmony, that refers to unity. Then when we move on to 2.2, 2.2, it actually says, explain the following concepts, give one example of each. So when we look at the term denomination, it's usually used in Christian circles. A denomination, it can mean a subgroup. A denomination is a subgroup of a particular religion. Denomination refers to a subgroup of a particular religion, that is a denomination. For example, e.g., the Roman Catholic Church, Church and Anglican is a Christian denomination. The Roman Catholic Church is a Christian denomination. All right, to make this clear, what we are saying is that within one religion, there are different subgroups. For example, in the Christian religion, we do have Christianity as the religion. Then under Christianity, we have different subgroups such as the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Lutheran Church, the Dutch Reformed Church. We also have the ZCC Church. We also have the Apostolic churches. So all those are subdivisions which are found in Christianity. So that is what we refer to as a denomination. Then moving on to the next one, theism. So the theism, it is the belief in a particular deity. Theism, it is the belief in a particular deity. So we are saying theism, it is the acknowledgement that God exists. For example, e.g., in Islam believes in Allah. Similarly, Judaism believes in Yahweh. They worship a god known as Yahweh. Then if you look at religions such as Hinduism, they believe in one God who is revealed in many forms. They believe in one God which is revealed in many forms, which we also know, which is also known as henotheism. Now, let's look at a parable. So when we are looking at a parable, or when we are defining a parable, so a parable can be defined as a story. It refers to a story. A parable is a story used to illustrate a religious principle. Parable is a story which is used to illustrate a religious principle. All right, so others can also say it's an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Others refer to it as an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. For example, the parable, when we go back to the, usually the term parable is used in Christian circles, though not only in Christian circles, it can also be found in other religions. But I'm going to use Christian examples for this particular illustration. So there is the parable of the prodigal son. There is the parable of the prodigal son as an example. Then there is also the parable of the lost sheep. Then there's also the parable of the sower. So these are stories which might sound earthly, but they are meant to portray or convey a spiritual meaning to them. So this, that is what we refer to as parables. All right, so answer the following questions in full sentences. Give 2 advantages of having a strong religious identity. When you have a strong religious identity, it encourages unity within a religion. So religious identity encourages unity in a religion. It actually encourages unity in a religion. Then in addition to that, a religious identity creates religious identity creates unity in a religion. In a religion. Religious identity, it actually creates unity in a religion. Now let's go and look at the downside of this. What are the disadvantages of religious identity? So religious identity can actually cause friction. Identity can cause conflict, can cause conflict in places with multiple religions. Multiple religions. So religious identity can actually cause conflict, fighting in places where several religions exist. So it occurs, and this usually occurs in places where one religion dominates. So this usually happens in places where one religion dominates. So we are saying that displaying a religious identity in places where religion dominates, it might not be a good idea simply because you can be victimized because of what of your religious identity. So it leads to victimization. It leads to victimization of believers. So believers become victims of abuse. It leads to victimization of believers. So that is why we say that religious identity can be something which is disadvantageous. Now 2.4.1 rather, Christianity Islam and Judaism. So the question says, identify the common feature of the following religions. Christianity, one common feature. So we are simply stating one common feature. But so 2.2.4.1, if you look at these religions, all of them, they are considered to be Abrahamic religions. They consider Abraham as an important ancestor in the history of the development of their religion. In addition to that, we can also say that they are monotheistic. All of them, they believe in one deity or one God. So they are monotheistic. In addition to that, they all originated in the Middle East. They are Middle East religions. So all of them are Middle East religions. Then in addition to that, they share common prophets. They share common prophets. These religions, they share common prophets. So that's why we say that that is another common feature. Then moving on to Hinduism and Buddhism. So if you look at Hinduism and Buddhism, originated on the Indian subcontinent. They originated on the Indian subcontinent. That is the first characteristic. They originated in the Indian subcontinent. Then Buddhism rather. Buddhism is Buddhism originated from Hinduism. It was born out of Hinduism. Buddhism came from Hinduism. That is something which is common. Eh? So all of them, they also teach the law of karma. They believe in karma. One action leads to another. They all believe they have a strong teaching of karma, whereby they say that you'll be rewarded or punished according to the life choices which you make. So if you make a wrong sub-choice, you'll be punished according to that particular sub-choice. Then 2.4.3, African traditional religion and African initiated churches. So if you look at these ones, they also have common features amongst them. All right. So we are looking at one common feature of each of the following groups: African traditional religion and African initiative churches. All right. So all of them, they originated in Africa. That is the first. Originated in Africa. Even from their names, African. So originated in Africa. Then in addition to that, we can also say that they include African culture. Includes African culture. They include African culture in their rituals. They include African culture in their rituals and practices. Then in addition to that, they believe that ancestors are intermediaries of God. They act on behalf of God. They convey information on behalf of God. They are intermediaries of God. That is what they also believe in. So that is the first thing. Originated in Africa, they include African culture. Their rituals and practices also are similar. They believe that ancestors are intermediaries of God. Then let's talk about the unique features of the following religions. So the first religion which I'm going to discuss about, it is Baha'i faith. So Baha'i faith believes in the uniqueness of Baha'i faith lies in its idea of unity, believes in unity, especially unity among mankind, unity amongst what you call it, amongst different people from the world. Then we can also say that they believe in the teachings of Baha'u'llah. They believe in the teachings of Baha'u'llah. Then in addition to that, their sacred text, the sacred text is the Kitab Aqdas. The sacred text is the Kitab. It is known as the Kitab Aqdas. Their sacred text is known as the Kitab Aqdas. Then in addition to that, we can also add that there is also another common feature whereby they also believe in science. Baha'i faith does not oppose science. So with other religions, they oppose science, but Baha'i faith does not oppose science. So these are the two features of Baha'i faith. Now looking at Taoism, the definition of Tao means the path of the universe. Tao means the path of the universe. All right. So Tao simply means the path of the universe. The path of the universe. Then in addition to that, they use what is called the sacred text is the Tao Te Ching. Tao Te Ching is what they derive their what you call it teachings from. Then they also believe in Taoism. They believe in yin yang, two opposing forces. They believe in yin yang, which are two opposing forces. That is what they believe in. Then moving on to Hinduism. So Hinduism, I would try to use a different color so that you can see clearly them. So when you go to Hinduism, the first feature is that Hinduism is polytheistic, it's henotheistic. They believe that there is what you call it, a particular supreme god, but there are also other lesser gods who manifest themselves also. Then in addition to that, they venerate the ancestors. You can also say that they venerate the ancestors. They venerate ancestors. In addition to that, we can also say that they venerate the ancestors, of Hinduism. They venerate the ancestors, but in addition to that, we can also say that they are henotheistic. We've mentioned that they believe in a caste system. In a caste society or system. They believe in a caste society, or they believe in they actually believe in a caste system, a caste society, whereby people are divided into different castes. Now, let's move on to the next one. Compare how teachings are transferred from generation to generation in ATR and in Islam. So in ATR and Islam, we need to check how teachings are passed from one person to another. So the first thing I'm going to explore how it is done in ATR. So we are going to use means of a table which we are going to illustrate on a whiteboard. So on one side, we are going to have ATR. Then on the other side, we are going to have, on one side, we are going to have ATR. Then on the other side, we are going to have Islam. So I'll start with Islam. Teachings in Islam. All right. The Quran is a sacred scripture. Which plays a role in passing on teachings from one generation to another. So that is the first thing. So the hadith, beside the Quran, there is also the hadith is also important in passing teachings by word of mouth, by oral means. So the hadith is also of importance in passing teachings. Then in addition to that, we should also say that the young people in Islam attend a school, a religious school called madrasa. They attend a religious school called madrasa. They go to a religious school which is called madrasa. Then in addition to that, we can also say that teachings can also be passed from young people, from older people onto the younger generation. Now, in African traditional religion, in ATR, which is ATR, ATR does not have written scriptures. Does not have written scriptures. There are no written scriptures in ATR. Rather, ATR has a strong oral tradition. In ATR, teachings are passed from one generation to another through oral means, through the spoken word. Yes, a strong oral tradition. Teachings are oral. Strong oral tradition. Yes, teachings are oral rather than written. Then elders play a crucial role. They play a crucial role of handing down teachings from one generation to another. It is the responsibility of elders to hand down teachings from one generation to another. All right, so that is these are the main differences between teachings in ATR and teachings in Islam. So these are teachings in ATR and also teachings in Islam. That is how they differ. So that brings us to the end of question 2, which is marked out of 50. Now let's move on to the third question. Let's move on to the third question. So back to our question paper. Question 3, religion and the media. No matter how hard the media try to be objective, they communicate a point of view. When they communicate news, for this reason, it is important to be critical when following a news broadcast, especially if it is about something important. So this was adapted from Shatter's top class religion studies grade 12. Read the extracts below and answer the questions that follow. Elaborate on different ways in which religions can respond to negative coverage in the media. So there are various ways of responding to media coverage. So various religions can appoint. Religions can appoint a media liaison officer. Liaison officer or public relations officer. That is the first way. Relations officer, someone who is responsible for communicating with the media. So members of religion also need to members should know the protocol of religion. Members should know the protocol of religion, of the media, rather. Members should know the protocol of the media, how the media operates. Then in addition to that, religions should reach out to media houses where there is information, where there is miscommunication, is misinformation. All right, they should reach out when they think that their religion has been unfairly portrayed in the newspaper. Then religions should avoid being confrontational. Religions should refrain from confrontation. They should refrain from confrontation, which might have bad results. Then in addition to that, we can also say that religious authorities should be objective. Religious leaders should be objective in their approach. They should maintain objectivity, whereby they unbiasedly address issues instead of taking the side of their religion. So they should be unbiased in their approaches. So that is very, very important when they are addressing issues to do with the media. So the next question reads, discuss how a person could use the media for his ongoing development to understand religion. So one could read articles. One can read articles to research further. About religions. They can make use of articles to read further about religions. That is number one. Then one can subscriptions to journals, to religious journals and religious content. So you need to subscribe to religious journals and to religious content. Then in addition to that, you can also access information. You can access information on television channels and social media channels and social media pages. They can also provide you with information. Then, use of reliable sources. So don't believe just everything which you read on newspapers, but rather make use of reliable sources. So reliable sources can inform you in an objective way. Then there is also need for critical thinking. It's not all about accepting facts as they are. There is also need for critical thinking. When you analyze things, you need not to accept facts at face value. So you need to critically dissect things and analyze them before you accept them for their weight. Then moving on to the next question. In your opinion, what are the two most important principles? So principles to keep in mind when one uses the media as a resource for religious growth and development. So when one uses the media as a resource for religious growth and development, what should be kept in mind? So the first thing is religion should be checked against, or religious all right, let me correct this. Media reports should be checked for accuracy. So don't just believe anything, but you should check for accuracy. So you can compare with other reports. That is the first thing. You must compare with other reports before you just accept it for face value. Then you should also be aware of the strength and weaknesses of that media, of that type of media. For example, social media, it has several weaknesses of the media. On social media, anyone can post anything. So it is easy to fall into the trap of what? Of misinformation. So you need to be aware of strengths and weaknesses. In addition to that, you need to know the ideology of the editor or of the producer. So various editors have various ideologies. Some do have an ideology whereby they will be peddling a particular agenda. So they might also be having propaganda in mind. So when you come across information on the media, you need to critically analyze it, simply because you might be misinformed. So there may be conflicting viewpoints on religious issues. This should be respected. You should also respect conflicting viewpoints on particular religions instead of blindly following anything. Then also, the source should be accountable. You should also consider accountability of sources. The sources should be accountable. So there is need for accountability of sources. Now, moving on to 3.4, how does the media handle religious issues in South Africa? Answer this question using the following headings. The popularity of the various types of media regarding religion. The popularity of various, the popularity of various types of media in regarding religion. So the first thing which we are saying is that mainstream media provides much coverage to religion. Many religions have a slot or a program, even a channel in which they propagate their views. So there are TV channels. There are TV channels, specific TV channels, and radio channels. There are specific TV channels and radio channels dedicated to religion. There are specific radio channels which are dedicated to religion. For example, e.g., we have Pulpit TV. We also have TV such as television channels such as Rema. Then we also have TBN as a television channel. So we do have those radio channels and TV channels. Then we also have what we call teleevangelism. Teleevangelism, preachers who preach online or on television channels, teleevangelism. Then we also have worship services. At times they are broadcasts, even on public broadcasters, worship services. Then we also have Eastern Mosaic, which is a program which focuses on Eastern religion. Then we have another another TV program called Om, which focuses on Hinduism. Then we have several ATR programs on various television channels and also on radio channel. So that's how they propagate. That's how different types of media play a role in religion. Then in addition to that, we can also move on to 3.4. So 3.4 says the content and spread of religious coverage. The content and spread of religious coverage. All right. So the first thing is that the content and spread is limited. And spread is limited because of certain reasons. The content and spread is limited. Then the media tends to sensationalize issues, to exaggerate issues. The media tends to sensationalize religious issues. So the content and the spread is limited. Media tends to sensationalize religious issues. They have a tendency of exaggerating when it comes to religious issues. They add more information which might not be accurate. Then in addition to that, we should also bear in mind that they tend to be negative towards, media tends to be negative towards mainstream media. They tend to be negative towards mainstream media. For example, the popular belief that all churches which exist there, they exist so that they can make money out of the congregation. So they tend to be negative towards mainstream media. So the media, towards mainstream religion rather. Towards mainstream religion. Then media tends to be more secular. They tend to be more secular as opposed to being religious. So that is another challenge which we have. They tend to be secular as opposed to being religious. Then in addition to that, you can also say that they tend to be media, they tend to be sensationalist. So that's what they do. Then let's move on to the next time, 3.4.3. So the question reads the objectivity or bias of religious coverage. All right, so it is related to the slightly related to the previous point. So religions are usually cast in bad light. They are usually cast in bad light by media houses. They are usually cast in bad light by media houses, meaning that media houses, they reports are based on on the company's editorial policy. Editorial policy. What does the editor want? It is usually based on the company's editorial policy. Then the content is not usually objective. Religious content is usually not objective in the media. Is usually not objective. They do not usually report without bias. They are usually biased. So the religious content is usually not objective. Usually they make use of propaganda. Media houses, they usually make use of propaganda. So these are some of the things which happen in South Africa's media space. Now let's quickly go to the next one, which is question 4. All right, question 4, it requires us to read an extract. So we shall be highlighting keywords there as we read the extract together. So this is something to do with the conflict in Iraq. So obviously, this is a typical example of religious conflict, perhaps. So we are anticipating to come across religious conflict. So we are not so sure whether there are two types of religious conflict. We have intra, then we have inter-religious conflict. So let's go through the article so that we can determine which type of conflict took place in Iraq. All right, under President Saddam Hussein, Iraq as a country was united but oppressed. Its economy was based on the oil industry and it was booming. Everyone was living in comfort. Saddam Hussein was a Sunni Muslim. We need to highlight that as well. But he was not a very strict Muslim. By establishing political alliances with some Shia leaders, yes, Saddam was able to enjoy support from a wide sector of the population. However, the majority of the Iraq are Shias, and many of them felt oppressed and also discriminated against. They later enjoyed support from Iran, which is predominantly Shia. The invasion of Iraq by the United States of America and its allies in 2003 unleashed internal forces over which the USA had no control. So, the invasion of Iraq by the United States of America and its allies unleashed internal forces over which the USA had no control. Various factions took advantage of the worsening security situation. From the point of view of establishing peace and democracy, the stated goal of the US, the invasion has been a failure so far. And with so many other conflicts, acts of terror that is targeting civilian populations of the other side have led to an increasing escalating of the polarization of public opinion. This has made it even easier for extremist groups to recruit people to their cause on both sides. And so the spiral of violence continues to escalate even after the USA withdrew from Iraq during President Barack Obama's first term. That is 2008 to 2012. What reasons did the United States give for the invasion of Iraq? So if you go back to the text, you find that they, according to them, they wanted to establish peace. That is, according to the USA. Their intention was to establish peace. Peace, that is the first reason which they gave. Then in addition to that, they said that they wanted to establish to establish democracy. Democracy. They believed that Iraq was not a democratic state, so they wanted to establish democracy. Then also to disarm Iraq, of weapons of mass destruction. According to them, Iraq had weapons of mass destruction which they wanted to disarm. Then 4.1.2, Saddam Hussein was not a very strict Muslim. How did this affect Sunni-Shia relationship under his rule? So he was, Saddam Hussein was tolerant was tolerant of the Shia. He was tolerant of the Shia. That is the first point. Then he enjoyed support. He enjoyed Shia support. In addition to that, you can say that the Shia gave him political support. They actually strengthened his political position. The Shia gave him political support. Then, in addition to that, you can also say that there was cordial Shia relationship to Iraq prior to invasion. So there was a cordial relationship between the Sunni and the Shia before the invasion of the USA. Then the next question reads, what are the internal forces stated in paragraph 2? So the internal forces are the Sunni militant organizations. So these are the militant organizations coming from the Sunni side. Then you can also say that the Shia militant organizations. So there were two armed camps, the Sunni camp and also the Shia camp. Then 4.1.4, critically evaluate the consequences of the US invasion of Iraq. The consequences. Some loss of life, then the second one, civilians were killed. Then we also have polarization, that is further division of people. There was also polarization when two people are against one another. Destruction of infrastructure. There was also destruction of infrastructure. Then in addition to that, we can also add that the country's infrastructure was destroyed. Then civilians were killed. Then there was the rise of extremism. There was the rise of extremist groups. Then there was also escalation of tensions. Escalation of tension, it was also another major thing. Then moving on to 4.2. 4.2 or before 4.2, it also affected the country's economy. Collapse of the country's economy. There was collapse of the country's economy as well. Then the USA got cheap oil from Iran. Those are some of the things. Then the USA appointed a puppet government to rule over the country. They actually formed their own government, which they cherry-picked. Now, moving on to 4.1.2, 4.1.5, which I'm going to write below. To what extent is the conflict in Iraq a religious conflict? So for this type of question, you can agree that it is a religious conflict, or you can say that it is basically a political conflict. So the first thing which we are going to say is that this is a conflict. This was a political and economic conflict. This was a political and economic conflict. This was a political and economic conflict. So basically, this was a political and economic conflict. Why do we say that? Before the US invasion, there was no religious conflict. Before the invasion of the USA, there was no religious conflict. Then conflict began after the invasion. Conflict only began after the invasion. Then you can also say that religious differences are often highlighted in any conflict. Are often blamed in any conflict. In any conflict. Religious differences are often blamed in any conflict. So people tend to blame religious conflicts. Then, all right, there was a political and economic conflict before the USA invasion. There was no conflict. Conflict began after the invasion. That's when conflict began. So, religious differences are often blamed in any conflict. People tend to blame religion instead of addressing the main issues there. Now, 4.2 reads, suggest 3 practical strategies that religious conflict can use to create a society free of religious conflict. So there are so many ways in which they can do this. They can actually, they must sign peace agreements, signing of peace agreements, signing of peace agreements. That is the first thing. Then in addition to that, there should be international organizations should assist such as WCC, World Council of Churches, Religious Council, so they should also intervene. Then, in addition to that, you can also say that the Parliament of World Religions, these are religious organizations which can intervene. Then the next question, it reads, explain the following concepts and give one example to illustrate their meaning. So interreligious conflict and interreligious and intra. So this is conflict within the same religion. This is conflict within the same religion. This is conflict within the same religion, e.g., the Shia and Sunni conflict. Then the next one, which is 4.3, 4.3 would be so when we look at interreligious conflict, it is conflict. This is basically a conflict between 2 or more religious groups. This is conflict between two or more religious groups, e.g., Christians and Muslims. So what we need to bear in mind is that intra, it takes place within the same religion. Then inter, it takes place between different religions. Now, let's quickly move on to question number 5, which requires us to discuss human rights. So, human rights in 1948, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights was produced and signed by governments all over the world. In this document, rights are based on the inherent dignity of human beings. Read the extract below and answer the questions that follow. What is meant by religious freedom? The definition of religious freedom. Religious freedom can be defined as defined as the freedom to openly practice a religion of your choice without to openly practice the religion of your choice without fear of persecution or victimization. Freedom to openly practice a religion of your choice without fear of persecution or even victimization. So, this is found in the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Human Rights, which is in 1948. Then it is also found in South Africa's Bill of Rights. It means that every person is free to choose his or her own religion. He or she is also free to practice it as long as it does not infringe on the rights of others. So we also need to add this dimension. So freedom, so it should not infringe on other people's rights. Freedom or religious freedom should not infringe on other people's rights. That's so you can openly practice your religion without infringing on other people's rights. 5.2. Why is it important to be aware of both our rights and responsibilities? All right, so why should we be aware of our rights and responsibilities when we are practicing our religion? So the first thing, knowledge of rights knowledge of rights empowers us. It gives us power. It empowers us to defend ourselves against prejudice, discrimination, and infringement. So it protects us, it empowers us to be protected from discrimination, prejudice, and infringement. Then it ensures a stable society. A stable society free of violence. So our rights make us enjoy a stable society. It promotes democracy. democracy. Knowing our rights and responsibilities promotes democracy. Then in addition to that, we can also say that it enables people to have mutual respect, promotes mutual respect. People would end up respecting one another. So it promotes mutual respect as well. So that is how human rights, rights and responsibilities are of importance. Now, moving on to 5.2, 4 ways in which religious freedom is protected. So for this one, we need the whiteboard. 5.2, 4 ways in which religious is protected, in which freedom of religion is protected. So this is 5.3. Freedom of religion is protected in the following ways. It is protected in the following ways. All right. First, it is enshrined in the Bill of Rights of South Africa. It is enshrined in the Bill of Rights of South Africa, of South Africa's constitution. So it's contained in South Africa's constitution. Then secondly, the constitution is the highest law of the land. Is the highest law of the land. So nothing can go beyond the constitution. So the constitution is the highest law of the land. Then in addition to that, we would also say that the South Africa Human Rights Commission protects all human rights. The South Africa Human Rights Commission protects all human rights listed in the Bill of Rights. All right. The Council of Religious Leaders also plays plays a big role, a huge role. So these are the institutions which protect South Africa's freedom of religion. One, it is contained in the Bill of Rights, which is of South Africa's constitution. The constitution is the highest law of the land. The South African Human Rights Commission protects all human rights listed in the Bill of Rights. The Council of Religious Leaders also plays a huge role in protecting our religious freedom. So this is 5.3. Now, going back to the question paper, we need to take the next one, 5.4. How does religion contribute to the basic human right of freedom of religion, belief, and opinion? So 5.4 will be taken back to the whiteboard. 5.4. 5.4. All right, 5.4. How does religion contribute to the basic right is protected from the religion? You have studied any three teachings that promote peace and harmonious living. So we have 5.3 instead of 5.4. So let's go back to any three teachings that promote peaceful and harmonious living amongst the different religions. So we go back to the whiteboard once more. So the question which we are attempting now is 5.3. Then the previous one will be 5.2. Apologies for that omission. This will be 5.2. So the first thing which we need to list them, 5.3 states 4 ways in which freedom of religion, we have handled that. From the religions you have started discussing three teachings that promote peaceful and harmonious living. So we start with Christianity. So the teachings in Christianity, they say, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So that's the first teaching, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Then it also says that you must try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Then in addition to that, we would also list the fact that you must forgive unconditionally. Then moving on to ATR, African Traditional Religion. It teaches that no man is an island. It further teaches that we all need one each other in one way or another. All right. It also teaches about Ubuntu, whereby they say one and watches another. All these African teachings on ATR on this particular religion. Then in addition to that, you can also say that ATR also teaches people to have mutual respect for each other. Then if we go to the East Asian religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, teach about the Four Noble Truths, and the law of karma. The Four Noble Truths and the law of karma. All right, now moving on to the next question, which is 5.4. How does religion contribute to the basic human rights of freedom of religion, belief, and opinion? So this can be done in several ways. All right, various religions teach or have teachings about about morality. Various religions have teachings about morality. For example, ATR teaches about empathy and mutual respect. All right. Other religions also teach about love. Teach about love and peaceful coexistence. And peaceful coexistence. They teach about love and peaceful coexistence. Then, in addition to that, all religions are regarded, all religions are regarded as equal in terms of the law. All religions are considered to be equal in terms of the law. Now, moving on to 5.5. 5.5. Okay. Before 5.5, we also need to add one or two things on 5.4, whereby in South Africa, there is no state religion. There is no state religion. No religion is favored much more than the other. Then religion does not have a say in government, does not dictate politics. So politics and religion have been separated. Then moving on to 5.5. To what extent does religion guide people to be good? So I would say religion guides people to be good to a large extent. Guides people to be good to a greater extent. To a greater extent because of the following reasons. Because religion promotes peaceful coexistence. Religion actually promotes the peaceful existence of different people. All right, religions teach about ethics and morality. Teach about ethics and morality. Ethics, good ethics and morality, and good behavior, or what is considered to be good behavior. So we can say religion is a strong guide, to good behavior in molding good behavior. It is a strong guide to good behavior. But on the other side also, you can say that religion is not the only source of morality. Is not the only source to morality. However, religion is not the only source to morality. There might be other sources to morality, which might play another role, which might play another role in the same way religion does. Then also religion promotes, or religious teachings promote philanthropy, helping the poor. Some religious teachings promote philanthropy. E.g., in Islam, we do have the giving of zakat. There is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It talks about giving to the poor, which is known as zakat. The same applies to other religions. So we can say that religion, it plays a larger role. So for 5.5.1 and 5.5.2, I'll take them to the whiteboard. Explain the difference between morals and ethics. So we can actually differentiate between these two by means of using a table. So ethics on one side and morality on the other side. So ethics on this side, then morality on the other side. So let's start with ethics. Ethics are external. They come from outside. These are socially defined, defined codes of conduct. These are socially defined codes of conduct for a group or for a profession. For a group or for a profession. For example, doctors have their particular ethics, teachers have their particular ethics, engineers have their particular ethics. So they are from a group or from a profession, such as medical or legal system. All right. Then on the other side, morality guides. Morality is internal. Morality guides individual behavior. Guides your own individual behavior, your behavior as a unique individual. Morality guides your own individual behavior. Morality, it governs or it guides your own individual behavior and internal judgments. It has something to do with your conscience. What your conscience tells you that this is good or bad. Then, ethics are meant for group behavior. Ethics govern group behavior. Then on the other side, we can say that morals are personal principles. Morals are personal principles which are based on individual. These are morals are personal principles are based on what you consider to be right and wrong. To be right or wrong. So that is the main difference or the main distinction between morals and ethics. Then moving on to the next question. All right, the next question reads, with reference to one religion, discuss three teachings that refer to morals and ethics. So in other words, the question is asking for the moral and ethical teachings of one religion, at least three moral or ethical teachings of a particular religion. So we are going to choose, I'm just going to outline the moral teachings in Islam. All right. All right. Islam teaches about the importance of zakat, zakat as a mandatory pillar of faith. So it is contained in the 5 pillars of Islam. It is mandatory that the needy should be helped. So that is stated in the 5 pillars of Islam, of the faith. Then in addition to that, they also teach about desiring for others what one desires. What one desires, which we call empathy. Then in addition to that, they also teach about the principle of justice. The principle of justice is also taught. Taught as outlined in the Sharia law, as outlined by the Sharia law. All right, moving on to the second example, which is Christianity. According to Christians believe that Jesus died to save humanity and that God raised him from the dead. Similarly, people should sacrifice for the benefit of others. By following the path of the cross and the 10 commandments. Then ATR is an example as well. In ATR teaches about respect for elders, ATR teaches about respect for elders and ancestors. The principle of Ubuntu is taught of the oneness of community. Of community, which is known as Ubuntu, is taught as well. The principle of Ubuntu is taught by ATR. All right. ATR emphasizes on wisdom from the past, wisdom from the forefathers. All right. ATR also teaches about maintaining. It also teaches about maintaining a sustainable relationship with the environment. ATR also teaches about maintaining a sustainable relationship with nature and the environment. The environment. So these are basically the three teachings that refer to morals and ethics in Christianity, Islam, and also in ATR. So you can see that this is the last question, which is 5.8. This brings us to the end of this particular discussion. We hope to meet you soon in other discussions, especially for the paper 2 discussion and other discussions as well.